So before we begin, I just want to do a little bit of safety framing with you all, because this is a confronting topic, and some of you will have recently lost loved ones. Some of you will have some grief in your heart. This meditation might also bring up some issues in your own mind to do with your own death. And so I want to acknowledge that and tell you that it's okay. See if you can sit with these strong feelings for a little while. And if necessary, if you're beginning to find yourself overwhelmed, it's okay to leave the room and go and have some alone time outside. Calm down. If you want to, you can come back when you're ready. Another thing which I didn't mention before, but I think is important to mention, is that when we have samvega, we feel this kind of urgency, but we need to balance it with a little bit of calm, with some tranquility. The Buddha did say things like you should practice as though your head is on fire, and there's certain times in our life when we will practice like our head is on fire, and there's some times when we just need to chill out, right? So we need to understand how we're working, and we need to understand when we need to balance something in our mind. And in the same way, when we practice something like death contemplation, we want to develop that sense of urgency, but we want to do it with a calm mind. We don't want to become overwhelmed. We want to maintain that calmness, which is strong, steady, and stable. And this strong, steady, stable mind is what enables us to see and confront these truths without being overwhelmed. So this is the kind of equanimity that we need, so that we don't become overwhelmed and fall apart. And so we want to keep this urgency. We want to have some calm at the same time. So I often say we need to have this urgent calm about us. This is something that we bring to our death contemplation, and you might find, as I do, that contemplating death is surprisingly peaceful. There's something about getting in touch with this truth that we've been resisting and hiding so long, that when we directly face it, it's like a relief. We feel calm and we feel peaceful. So that's the kind of mind we want to bring to this practice. So to do that, we're going to begin with just 10 minutes of silent practice, and then we'll do the 9 cemetery contemplations. So some of these contemplations, actually the whole contemplation is, I'll just introduce it quickly, imagining a corpse decomposing. Some of the stages are a little bit similar, so I might just merge them just to save time. But we're going to be looking at a corpse decomposing. It's not our body that we're looking at. It's not a friend's body, a loved one's body. It's just an anonymous corpse. Okay? Good. Are you ready? Okay, so let's begin. So just begin by settling and coming into this present, here and now. Take a comfortable posture. Close your eyes. Allow for your body to relax. We hear the sounds around us, birds outside, the air conditioner. We draw the mind away from that world outside into this room, surrounded by good friends. So we're safe, we're supported, we're not alone. Bring your awareness to this body seated here. See the posture of this body. Feel your body here. Feel the pressure against the chair. Feel the pressure in the thighs, the back, feet connecting with the floor. You're here now, in this place. You're aware. But relaxed. You're comfortable. And so for the next 10 minutes, just enjoying this relaxed body, enjoying being mindful and aware of being present here and now. Relaxing the body, perhaps watching the breath, or just being open and aware to this present. So with this calm, quiet mind, we'll begin our cemetery contemplations. So imagine now lying on the ground before you, a body 1, 2, 3 days old. This body has no life left in it. You see that the life has disappeared from this body, and that changes have already started to occur. The process of death and decomposition can be seen. So this body, 1, 2, 3 days old, has become bloated. The gases inside the body cause it to swell, no longer breathing this body swells at the chest, the abdomen, and the skin has started to change, no longer nourished by blood moving through the body. That blood has started to pool. The skin becomes mottled, blue, purple. And this is what a body looks like. 1, 2, or 3 days old, bloated, blue. All signs of life gone. And so too will my body become. I have not gone beyond death. Such is my inescapable fate. My body will become just like this body. There's nothing I can do about it. It's okay. This is normal, natural, a process. So see that body lying there. See this process. Understand this will happen to me. And so this process continues. This body lying there becomes food for many creatures. Dogs, jackals, rats, crows, vultures, flies, maggots. That body is food for many creatures. And this is normal. This is natural. This is the way things are. And my body, too, will become just like this. Food for many. There's nothing I can do about it. This is an inescapable fate. And now this body, the skin, having been eaten, there still remains some flesh. We see the bones, the skeleton. We see the blood on the bones. We see the muscles, the sinews. We see the inside of this body that's hidden from us. The skin, having been eaten away, reveals the insides, tendons, bloodied bones. And so too, my body will become just like this, its insides exposed. The process continues. This body without skin, without flesh, these blood-stained bones held together by tendons. Eventually, the blood dries up and disappears from those bones. The body held together, the bones held together only by those tendons. Look at this body, what's left of this body. Bones, tendons, like a puppet with strings. Those tendons are all that keeps that human shape. See it, that skeleton lying there, still in its human shape, held together by tendons. My body
will become just like this. I have not escaped death. This will be my inescapable fate. And it's okay. It's only natural. This is what happens to bodies. And over time, the process continues. Now, even those tendons have rotted away. That human form is shattered, fragmented. Now, over there, a foot bone. Over there, a hand bone. Over there, a hip. Here, a rib. There, a leg bone. There, a tooth. Over there, a skull. That body that was once cohesive, held together by string, tendons, muscles, skin, now lies scattered, those bones all over the place. My body too will become just like this. Because I have not gone beyond death. This will be my inescapable fate. This is normal, natural. This is what happens to bodies. This is a process. Over time, this process continues. Those bones, moved by water and wind, piled up together. They're bright white still, bright white, like a conch shell. But over time, they yellow, they decay, they become brittle and break. It takes time, years, And my body too. My body is just like that. I have not gone beyond death. My bones will become just like that, yellow, decayed, broken. There's nothing I can do to stop it. This is a natural process. And eventually, long into the future, those bones breaking down, eroded by wind, by water, baked in the sun. Those bones decay and keep decaying until they are nothing more than a pile of dust. See it there, that pile of dust. And understand that my body will become just like that. Nothing more than a pile of dust. I have not gone beyond death. I am subject to death. My body will become a pile of dust. Understanding this, knowing this truth. Why? Why do I cling so strongly to this sense of me, mine, I? Why do I cling to this body? Why do I cling to youth, to health, to life? Why do I hold so closely to things and people that, just like me, are impermanent, changing? And seeing in this way, knowing these truths, how am I living my life? And so now, leaving that image of dusty bones left there, leaving that alone, coming back to this place, to this room here now. This room full of friends. To be here on your cushion, your chair, coming back to this body. This body here now. Remembering you're alive. How are you living your life? And now relaxing your awareness will arise from the meditation. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. Very good. Yes, how was that? Is it okay? Just checking to see if everyone is moving, no one died during the meditation. Good. So this is something that we can do from time to time and is useful because it helps to chip away at that idea of permanence, permanent self, me, my, I. And it helps us see the truth of anatta, helps us see impermanence, and helps us understand the nature of suffering in this world. Thank you, Osman. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to the organisers of this event today, and thank you to all of you for being here, for this opportunity to reflect upon death and perhaps reflect upon life. So the Buddha said that no beings born can escape death. So we're beginning with some tough love, some harsh truths from the Buddha. And I'm looking around this room and I'm thinking, time is running out, right? Yes. Time is running out. There's only one way this can go. Life is uncertain. Only death is certain. Your life is decreasing. Every moment you've been sitting here, you've been coming closer and closer to death, right? Your life is running out. Your luck is running out. Already, for many of you, you've lived longer than most humans lived in history, right? You've lived longer than many of the animals that we find in nature. But you can't live forever. And sooner or later, your luck will run out. And there are many ways to die, right? Sometimes I ask the groups, I'm like, how do you want to die? And everyone says,
asleep in my bed, peacefully with no pain. So basically they don't want to be there for their own death. They want to be asleep in bed, dreaming nicely. But for many people, this is not what happens. This is not a choice that they get to make. And we could die at any moment, in any manner of ways. At that time, our friends and family won't be able to help us. All of our wealth and possessions won't save us. And this body, which has carried us for so long, this body will not be able to sustain life, and we'll have to let it go. So all religions, all spiritual traditions bring an awareness to death. The Buddha taught Mara Nusati, the recollection of death or the contemplation of death. He talked about the future perils that people face. You might stub your toe and fall over a cliff, or get food poisoning. You might get bitten by a scorpion or a snake. And then, the Buddha says, it will be very difficult to practice. And when you die, you've lost an opportunity in this life. So this gives us a hint as to why the Buddha emphasized death. Apart from getting us to see this reality, this truth of our experience, he taught us death so that we can develop a sense of urgency in our practice. Some spiritual urgency, some vega, an energy that will propel us further along our spiritual path. Because time is running out. How are you living your life? So these are the kind of questions the Buddha asked. And when he taught contemplations of death, it was to make us stop and pause, for us to see this truth that is so often hidden from us. We hide it from ourselves, right? We don't like thinking about death, talking about death. We don't like to see dead bodies. We don't want to know about the process of death. We would prefer to remain as happily ignorant as possible, especially about our own death. Society is organized in such a way that we hide the reality of death from ourselves constantly. It doesn't matter how much of that anti-aging cream you wear at night. It doesn't matter how much you exercise your body, how many vitamins you take. In the end, you'll die. But this culture, I don't know how it is in Malaysia, but in Australia, it's very rare. You don't get to see a dead body very easily. And even open casket funerals are becoming quite rare. So we never really get the sense of seeing death. How many people here have seen a dead body? Wow, most of you. Ah, you put your hand up anyway. Have you seen a dead body? Yes. So quite a few of you, right? I'll come back to that a bit later. You know, it took me a long time until I was like in my 20s before I saw a dead body. And this is quite common in the West. We don't see death. Think about the old days, actually not that long ago, where there was cremations of bodies and where there were charnel grounds where dead bodies were thrown, left to decay and rot. But actually, I mean, death is everywhere, right? We don't have to look too far. I mean, you just have to walk into the supermarket or go down to the dana table, right? We see death everywhere. And yet, we're a bit blasé about it. We see it, but we don't really understand it. We don't really see it. If we really saw it, we would be very energetic in our spiritual practice. If we really saw it, if we really understood, I am going to die, then we would radically change our life. But there's a part of us that still doesn't believe that death is coming for us. Doesn't fully believe. Everyone else, sure, but me, maybe not me. Maybe I'm the lucky one. Right? We don't fully believe it. And there's partially a defense mechanism. To contemplate death is a little bit scary, right? It's a little bit frightening. It's troubling. And so, in spiritual communities like this one, we can come together surrounded by friends and we can listen to some teachings and prepare the mind a little bit to face this reality by doing a death contemplation. So back in Sydney, what I'll often do is I'll take a group to a cemetery. And cemeteries are a great place to come face to face with death, right? We don't often go to a cemetery unless we're going to a funeral perhaps or to visit someone who has died. So everyone there is dead, mostly. Everyone in these old cemeteries that are falling apart and look very romantic, everyone who loved those people who died are also dead. Everyone who built the gravestones, dug the graves, also dead. So we start to recognize that this is something that's likely to happen to me too, right? All those people died. And you read the gravestones. You'll have their name, their age. Sometimes you might have the same name as one of these dead people. Or they died at your age right now, or even younger, or older. Sometimes it will have how they died. Died of tropical disease, malaria, got hit by a tram. And this helps to make this concept of death a little bit more real. The technique the Buddha recommended was visiting a charnel ground. Now, charnel grounds are not like cemeteries. In cemeteries, the graves are dug and the body is put in. covered over again. In charnel grounds, the body is just thrown there. So he recommended that people go to charnel grounds. Why? To make it real. To make it real. So we'll be doing the charnel ground meditation from the Satipatthana, the 9 cemetery contemplations, a little later. But we need to warm up a little bit. We need to prepare the mind a little bit so that when we practice this confronting meditation, we feel safe and comfortable that this is something that is going to be useful and instructive. So the first thing that we need to come to terms with is this concept of impermanence. So this is why the Buddha taught impermanence. Nothing lasts, not even you. You are also impermanent. And so going to a cemetery or thinking about your departed loved ones, this is a way that we can practice impermanence and see the impermanence of life, understand death. So that's an easy way to get familiar with this idea of death, impermanent. Impermanence is part of the laws of nature. Nothing can last forever. Nothing stays the same. No being that is born cannot not die. So this is natural and normal. It's not something that we can fight. It's not something that we can control or wish didn't happen. Impermanence is a law of nature. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so when we see impermanence in our meditation practice, we're getting used to this idea. When we see the changes in the body, the changes in the mind, we're getting used to this idea. We're coming to terms with this truth. We don't try to stop what's happening in the body or the mind. We can't change it. This is impermanent. The Buddha taught a range of recollections and reflections to help us get to terms with this truth of impermanence. He taught us the 5 frequent reflections. Do any of you know the 5 frequent reflections? This is the reflection on old age. Yeah? Old age is all about impermanence, isn't it? All your faculties starting to fall apart, your teeth fall out, your hair turns grey. This is impermanence. The recollection on sickness, right? We were healthy, we get sick, impermanence. One of our sicknesses will carry us away. Maybe inside your body now, there's a change occurring. Perhaps something that will lead to your death. So sickness is a truth that the Buddha advised us to come to terms with, just like old age. The 3rd frequent reflection is death. I won't say too much about that since we're kind of talking a lot about it. And then, these are truths of the body, right? The next frequent reflection is separation, that I must be separated from all that is beloved and pleasing to me. You will become separated from everything that is beloved and pleasing to you. All of your favorite things, all of your favorite people, all of your favorite pets, all of your belongings, your status, your reputation, even this body. You will become separated from these things. And there's nothing we can do about it. And this is natural and normal. This is what has happened to everyone throughout history. And then the last frequent reflection is karma. So this is the wisdom reflection. This is about how am I living my life? What kind of actions by body, speech and mind am I doing now? Knowing that I'll receive that karma result in the future. How am I living my life? Because these truths of old age, sickness, death, separation, these truths should make you think about what you're doing with your life. How are you living your life? Are you being a good person? Are you practicing generosity, making merit? Are you using your body well, your speech in a good way? Are you developing your mind through meditation? How are you living your life? And so the Buddha said that these 5 frequent reflections, should we go through them again? Old age, sickness, death, separation, karma, very good. These 5 frequent reflections are something that everyone should do. That means you, frequently, regularly. In this way, we chip away at the ignorance that prevents us from seeing these things clearly. And we chip away at laziness that prevents us from acting. We develop a sense of samvega, a sense of urgency. We understand these are truths, inescapable truths. So, seeing this more clearly, seeing this regularly, we change the way we're living. And we do this because we understand the teaching of karma, that our actions will have a future result. And so for our own well-being, for our own benefit, our own long-term happiness, we make sure that we're living a good life. So it's difficult to see these things. It's difficult to understand these truths. And even if we see it very clearly, sometimes it fades and it becomes difficult to see. We need to really come to grips with this idea of change, of impermanence. One way we do it is to contemplate the brevity of life. The brevity of life. I already said that most of you are older than many of the humans throughout history, but you've survived, for better or worse, right? You've survived this long. We know that in many countries, little babies, it's quite common for little babies to die. They have a very short life. Or for children to pass away. For most of us in well-developed countries, we have a pretty safe life. We have this idea that we're going to live a long life. But actually, no matter how long our life is, it's always that little bit too short, right? You know, if only I had a few more years. If only I could do a bit more meditation in the future. And so our life is fleeting. Our life is brief. Does knowing that change you somehow? No, not really. If you really saw it, if you really understood it, it would. I mean, when I say brief, I mean this could be your last day. One day, you're going to wake up dead. This is an expression, I don't know if you've heard this expression before. You know, you might wake up dead. So no, you won't wake up at all, you know, because you're dead. And I mean, none of us want to really think about this, do we? I was doing the Vasa in a monastery in Mae Hong Son in Thailand, and we had an Indian monk come to visit. And about 2 weeks into the retreat, he died. And I know that he didn't wake up that morning thinking, this is it, my last day. But he was young. None of us wake up thinking this is my last day. But one day, it will be. How are you living your life? The Buddha tells this beautiful story of Araka the sage, a teacher from the past, the Buddha says. This is in the Anguttara Nikaya 7s. So this teacher, Araka, once upon a time lived this sage, Araka. And he was a great teacher, had many followers. And he always taught the brevity of life. And he gave a series of similes to help us understand this truth. He said, life is like a drop of dew on a blade of grass. When the sun comes and warms that dew, it evaporates, disappears. So quick, right? So fast. He says, life as a human is short and fleeting. Think about this and wake up. Wake up, he says. Life as a human is short, fleeting, and full of suffering, he says. Think about this and wake up. Wake up. So we have this word awakening, a synonym for nibbana or enlightenment. And the opposite of that, of course, is that we're asleep. We're ignorant, deluded, in the darkness. We're not awake to this truth of the brevity of life. So that's the first image, the image of a dewdrop on a blade of grass. Yeah, you can see it, yeah, getting burnt up by the sun. The second image is a water bubble from the rain. You know, like yesterday it really rained. When it rains like that, you see these little water bubbles pop up. And they pop up for a second, and then as soon as they pop up, they're gone, right? They don't last a long time. Either do we. In the same way as that little water bubble bursting, we too have a brief existence.
Human life is brief, fleeting, full of pain and suffering. Think about this and wake up, says Araka. He says it's like a line drawn in the water. As soon as you draw that line, it disappears. This is how fast our life goes by. So quick. It's there and then it's gone. He says it's like a fast-moving river flowing down a mountain. That river is so fast and so powerful, it only goes one way. You can't stop it. It just flows on. Like our life. Our life flows on. We can't stop it. We can't pause it. Sooner or later, we will die. He said it's like a glob of spit. Where the spit spat out into the world. Maybe this simile is to help us come to terms with how insignificant we are, right? Just like a glob of spit spat out into the world. Araka says that we're like a tiny slither of meat thrown into a hot pan, sizzles and disappears. We're the meat. We sizzle here in the world and we disappear. The last image, a cow being led to slaughter. Every step bringing that cow closer and closer to death. And in the same way, every step we take brings us closer and closer to death. And there's nothing we can do about it. So this human life, says Araka, is short, brief, it's fleeting, it's full of pain and suffering. Think about this and wake up. He says, do what's necessary. Live the spiritual life. And the Buddha goes on to say that at this time, when the sage Araka was living, human life was thousands and thousands of years long. And even though humans lived for thousands of years, Araka still taught that life is brief. So even though we have long lifetimes, as I said before, it's never long enough, right? Our life is going to be brief. And this is something that I've had to realize as I get older. I still feel young. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. I don't know how you people feel, but I'm surprised at how old I am. It comes as a bit of a shock, actually. You know, when someone sends you a card or you see the candles on the cake and you think, what? It's sneaking up on us, isn't it? It's because life is brief. And you look back and you think, yes, it was just yesterday. I was a young person. And you look at your parents and they're old. You think of how not long ago you were hanging out with your grandparents and now that they're past. So we need to understand this truth that our life is brief.
And of course, it's not just to terrify us, you know. We shouldn't be spiritually scared. We should respond with wisdom. With wisdom. Knowing this, how am I living my life? And so we've talked about impermanence, we've talked about the brevity of life. I've kind of hinted at, you know, that we should be performing good actions. And of course, none of this is really going to prevent death, but it will help us understand that we can't escape it. And yet still, I think for many of us, even though you've heard that today, none of you are racing out to, you know, to buy a coffin to practice in at home, or you got to leave here, and then tonight you just got to pretend that you didn't hear this talk at all, that nothing happened. You just got to go back to living your ordinary lives, and it might not have really affected you much. And I will have just wasted my time? No. Hope not. So we need to make it real, right? And this is not just our problem. Like, this is a problem that was also around at the time of the Buddha, that it's very difficult for us to understand. And so I just want to share one last sutta with you, and then we'll take a short break and we'll come back and we'll do the meditation. This sutta is also about developing that concept I mentioned before, samvega, spiritual urgency. Samvega means literally like to tremble or to shake. And it's something that comes up a lot in the Buddha Sutras when people get a sense of the intense nature of samsara, they experience samvega. You know, if you had the ability to look back at all of your previous lives and saw the amount of suffering you've had in your life, wouldn't you develop a sense of urgency, wanting to escape that round of samsara? And so samsara is this very powerful, positive emotion that sees something profound and uncanny that cannot be unseen, and it affects you. You tremble, you know. Another word that is associated with is lomahasa, the hair-raising samvega. You get this pins and needles, or little tremors, goosebumps in your body, because you're like, whoa, this is profound. Like, this is your body saying, pay attention. Have you ever had this experience of samvega, where you kind of think, oh my gosh, life is impermanent, what am I doing? Or like, life is suffering, how can I escape? This is the experience of samvega, this desire to escape your suffering. This urgency, this energy to come out of ignorance and come out of suffering and to be free. And so we need to make it real, like really real. Not just theoretically real, but really real. And so the Buddha gives a series of similes to help us understand this in a sutta about horses. So these horses are compared to people. So the Buddha, he always does this thing where he will introduce a series of similes and then compare them to people. So, the first horse is the kind of horse that is not a smart horse, a bit of a slow learner. Do you know how they used to train horses at the time of the Buddha? Not just horses, but also elephants and bullocks. They used to use a goad, G-O-A-D. It's like a long stick with a point at the end and a hook. So they use that to stick it into the animal's flesh. Pull it with the hook. So the kind of, actually I'll talk a little bit different to what I was planning to. So the kind of horse that is the first image that the Buddha uses is a smart horse, a clever horse. So this horse understands when it sees the goad that it should be stirred into activity. It should move. This is samvega. When it sees the goad, the shadow of the goad, it thinks, I better move. My master wants me to move. And so it moves, right? This is a clever horse, a clever horse. And the Buddha says that this is like a person who is clever, is wise. And when they hear that someone in the next village has died, they are stirred with samvega. They move. So this person is smart, right? They just heard about someone dying and they're like, this will happen to me. How am I living my life? What am I doing? Just hearing about death, they develop wisdom. This will happen to me. So this is a smart person. The second horse, the second person, is the kind of horse that when it sees the shadow of the whip, doesn't register, needs to feel, sorry, not the whip, the goad, it needs to feel the goad going into its hairs. Only then does it go, oh, wait, okay, I have to move. My master wants me to move. In a similar way, this person, like this horse, doesn't hear about someone dying in the next village, but sees a dead body. So this is like you, yeah? Like you saw a dead body, most of you. And so it's real to them, right? They just didn't get it at the theory level. They needed it right in front of them. And then they're like, this will happen to me. How am I living my life? I must develop spiritual urgency. Did you? When you saw that dead body? Did you get moved by samvega? Did you experience some spiritual urgency? No? Well, you're not like that horse, which was not as clever as the first horse, but pretty clever, only number 2 on the list. So pretty clever, that horse. The next horse, the next person, is the kind of horse that doesn't move when it sees the shadow, doesn't move when it feels the hairs being touched by the goad, but needs for that goad to be pushed into its skin, into its flesh. Only then does that slow learner horse think, oh, okay, I should move. So it takes quite a lot for it to register on this horse. So that kind of person, the Buddha says, is like someone who doesn't hear about a death and isn't moved, doesn't see a dead body in front of them and isn't moved, but who sees a dead body in front of them, who they know, who they are friends with, or someone from their family, an associate, and that makes them feel something. So for many of us, this is when we will get some sort of emotional reaction to death, right? I mean, let's be honest, we don't really care about other people, do we? It doesn't move us when we hear about people dying in other places. Seeing a stranger dead on the street doesn't really move us. But someone we know, now death is real, right? Now death is coming for you, yeah? It's coming for you and your friends and your family. Maybe then you'll think, oh, this will happen to me. How am I living my life? And for a lot of people, this is the kind of horse/person that we are. They'll experience death in their family or friendship circle, and it will affect them. It will make them reprioritize their life. It will have an impact on them. That asks them, how am I living? How do I want to spend the rest of my time? So for many of us, this is the kind of horse that we are. There's one more. The last horse doesn't move when it sees the shadow, doesn't move when its hairs are touched, doesn't even move when its skin is pierced. Only when that sharp point goes deep into the bone, only then does it think, oh, okay, I should move. Like a really slow learner. And the Buddha said that this kind of person is the kind of person who death isn't real to them until it is happening to them. Until death or sickness is coming for them, only then is it real. Only then. It takes a lot to convince this person. And I've seen people who refuse to accept this truth of death, even when it's happening to them. They resist, they fight, they can't accept it, they're in denial. Slow learner. So we don't want to be a slow learner. We don't even want to be happy with being that third kind of horse. We want to develop the kind of mind that is quick, sharp, comprehends clearly the nature of our reality, the nature of our predicament here in samsara. We want to have a mind that sees clearly and understands. This is the kind of mind that the Buddha had. This is the kind of mind that people who investigate impermanence develop. This kind of mind is a noble mind. This is the kind of mind of a sharp, facultied person, seeing something really clearly. The Buddha said that if we can maintain mindfulness of death, even for one breath, if we maintain that awareness of the truth of impermanence, of death, even for one breath, then we have done an enormous amount of spiritual work. It's so difficult to maintain that awareness, to keep it real. But it's a powerful and very instructive experience that shows us something that we'll never forget. And then knowing this, we respond accordingly. We're moved. And so I've talked a little bit about impermanence, the brevity of life, the importance of coming to terms with death. So we're going to take a few moments now, break, and then we'll come back and we'll do the 9 cemetery contemplations. So please come back at 11:05. 11:05. Thank you very much.